Anatomy Trains invites you to take your career to the next level with Anatomy Trains Structural Integration, ATSI. We're kicking off the next training this September in Maine under the guidance of Tom Myers and our expert team. Come map the pattern and shape the change in this transformational 3-part certification program. Visit anatomytrains.com for details.
When I was first learning how to write soap notes, I remember a couple of things very clearly that made the whole process very frustrating. One, I never had enough time between sessions to jot down my notes, and by the end of the day, I forgot everything I did. And two, I didn't really know what I was palpating, so when it came to the A part of soap notes, the assessment part, I would either indicate that I found a trigger point or an adhesion, because that's all I knew. Trigger points I felt pretty good about. I had my own collection of them in my back and was pretty confident that I understood what was going on there. Adhesions, though, I was haphazardly throwing so many palpatory assessments under that umbrella. Limited range of motion in joints? Adhesions. Dense compressed tissue? Adhesions. Any and all pain that wasn't a trigger point? Adhesions. I have since learned a lot about being more articulate and specific when it comes to understanding and documenting clients' pain, and I have also learned a lot about adhesions. Let me put it this way. Adhesions are kind of like sticky dried fruit, but with the added bonus of being alive. They are the gnarled configurations of connective tissue that are problematic, are capable of wreaking havoc all over the body, and they are animated. Most importantly, they are misunderstood. They are, essentially, the Frankensteins of pain. Or should I say, Frankenstein's monster. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a grisly story about a guy who knew some things about science, took some parts from corpses, stitched them together, created an entirely new being, and then added electricity to bring his creation to life. Or at least that's the basic outline that most people are familiar with. What it's also about, you might not know, is perception and judgment, abandonment issues, and the deep question of whether or not a prescribed bad thing is inherently bad, or can that change? In the book, the monster was brought to life and then immediately rejected by his creator, Dr. Frankenstein, as a reaction to his appalling hideousness. This, of course, left the monster angry, as anyone would be, and with zero guidance as to how to do anything. So, angry and hideous, he wandered out into the world where, in a shocking turn of events, no one liked him. Despite his attempt to learn how to communicate and read and be among society, the monster was met with shock, fear, and of course, violence. His response was to then, unintentionally, because that's how these things work, mirror what he saw and became violent himself. After a small but pointed killing spree aimed at his creator's relatives out of vengeance, Dr. Frankenstein ran to the Arctic, where he was chased by his monster only to die, leaving the monster wanting the same fate. It's considered one of the greatest horror stories ever written for its insights into an architect's responsibility to their creation and the consequences of societal rejection. But please go watch some YouTube videos on this topic. It is so fascinating. To me, and for the purposes of this episode, this is a story that represents the life of an adhesion like no other. It is dark, unveils the horrors of abandonment and unnecessary violence, and poses one of the most important questions we should be asking ourselves when it comes to pain. Is it the pain that is ugly, or is it our perception that makes it so? I'm so glad you asked. An adhesion, in its most basic form, is simply connective tissue that has formed an abnormal layer where it wasn't originally supposed to be, or has changed its structure in response to some kind of trauma, inflammation, or repetitive stress. Think of it as your body's internal duct tape, not particularly elegant, but surprisingly effective at holding things together when the original structure has been compromised. Your fascia, that complex connective tissue that winds its way around every muscle, every organ, and every structure in your body, is constantly remodeling itself. It is, in actuality, alive. It's like having a live-in contractor who never quite finishes the job, but keeps making improvements based on how you use your body. Spend 8 hours a day hunched over a computer, your fascia notices this and starts reinforcing that position. Sleep on your side, the same side, every night, and your connective tissue takes notes. But here's where it gets interesting. Adhesions don't just randomly appear. They form for a reason. Your body, in its infinite wisdom, or stubbornness, depending on your perspective, is trying to solve a problem. Let's say, for example, that you're recovering from surgery. Your body just went through what is essentially a controlled trauma. Someone literally cut through the layers of your tissue to fix something inside of you. Now, as you heal, your body creates adhesions, a kind of scar tissue, so to speak, as part of the repair process. These adhesions act like internal scaffolding, holding everything in place while the primary healing begins. Or consider what happens after a significant injury, like a hamstring strain or an ankle sprain. Your body creates adhesions in an attempt to stabilize the area and prevent further damage. It's essentially saying, well, if you're going to keep doing whatever silly stunt that caused this injury in the first place, I'm going to have to send in some reinforcements, which frankly is pretty thoughtful of it. Even in cases of chronic postural stress, like the popular slouching or the fashionable high heels, adhesions form to help your body maintain stability in positions it wasn't designed to hold for extended periods of time. Your fascia is basically creating a new structural framework to support your lifestyle choices, however questionable they may be. The problem is that we've decided they're inherently bad, like Frankenstein's monster, and we've responded accordingly, like the villagers with the torches storming the castle. We see restricted movement, feel that characteristic stickiness or density in the tissue, and immediately declare war without stopping to ask why they're there in the first place. This brings me to one of the most uncomfortable truths in manual therapy. Our aggressive approach to breaking up adhesions might not always be the heroic intervention we think it is. I get it, and sometimes it is the right call. But often, when we've got tissue that has formed for protective or stabilizing reasons, and our response is to attack with combative cross-fiber friction or some medieval-looking tool designed to release it, it doesn't necessarily work. It's a bit like seeing Frankenstein's monster wandering up your street and immediately grabbing the pitchfork instead of asking, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need some help?" If the monster responds to violence with violence, suddenly you've got a much bigger problem than when you started. But if the monster softens with a gentler approach, then you have a pretty clear indication that you're on the right track. When we dig in and muscle through trying to break something up, we are essentially conveying the message, you don't belong here, you're wrong, and we're going to hurt you until you go away. Your client's adhered rhomboids or stuck glute medius might initially comply, but the problematic symptom often returns, sometimes stronger, sometimes angrier, and almost always more protective than before. This is very commonly what is going on when we, as massage therapists, feel like we are working incredibly hard and the client's pain or dysfunction remains stubbornly stuck. They come back week after week or month after month with the same chronic issue. It's incredibly frustrating for everyone involved. So, what's the alternative? How do we work with adhesions without declaring war on them? The answer lies in changing our relationship with them entirely. Instead of seeing them as hideous freaks that don't belong, we could start seeing them as newcomers who might just need a better integration into the neighborhood. When we approach adhesions with curiosity instead of an onslaught of tactical maneuvers, remarkable things can happen. Instead of diving in with deep friction, try gentle, sustained contact. Instead of forcing movement, try inviting movement in. Listen to what the tissue is telling you about its history, its fears, its needs. I know, it sounds like I'm suggesting throwing pixie dust at the gigantic mutant banging at your door, but I'm telling you, pixie dust isn't all bad. This is perhaps the most important shift we need to make in our thinking about adhesions. The goal isn't always elimination. It's often integration. Some adhesions serve important structural functions and shouldn't be completely removed. Others can learn to be less rigid and become more amenable to mobility demands. Adhesions often need education. Okay, so they're not going to sit down with you and learn language and complex communication skills. But learning is what tissues do every day for the entirety of our lives. So instead of reinforcing their hefty borders, train them how to move and how to breathe. Remind them of what they are actually capable of. Frankenstein's monster, it turned out, didn't need to be destroyed. He needed understanding and acceptance. He needed someone to teach him how to live in the world. He needed a little pixie dust. This requires patience, consistency, and a completely different therapeutic mindset. Instead of forcing change, we're facilitating adaptation. Instead of conquering tissue, we're collaborating with it. Instead of breaking things down, we are building new patterns of function. Mary Shelley's story doesn't end particularly well for anyone involved, which is probably why it's such an enduring piece of horror literature. But in our version of the story, the one where we as practitioners learn how to work with adhesions instead of against them, we get to write a different ending. In our version, no one dies alone in the Arctic. In our version, the monster is loved and becomes an awesome member of the community, maybe with a faux leather jacket and some sunglasses, but with the heart of a teddy bear. And Dr. Frankenstein opens a school for massage therapists, and it's by far the most comprehensive and, of course, the coolest school in the land. In our therapeutic version, adhesions learn how to maintain their protective and supportive functions while allowing for appropriate movement and adaptations. Clients learn to understand their tissue patterns and adaptive responses rather than pathological problems. And we, as therapists, have successful practices with a huge clientele base who all understand the importance of receiving massage regularly, and everyone wins. As for that other soap note issue I mentioned at the beginning, finding time between sessions to actually document what happened is a whole different kind of monster entirely. And unlike adhesions, this monster doesn't respond well to gentle, sustained contact or pixie dust. This particular beast requires boundaries. Setting boundaries for ourselves and with clients who feel comfortable enough with us to share their weekend itinerary or their complicated relationship with their mother-in-law is key. It's like a complete personality switch we have to make internally within a very short minute. Learning to say, I need 2 minutes to document our session before my brain turns to mush, without creating a sense of rejection, the exact same issue that their adhesions were going through not 5 minutes ago, is truly an art form. Some days, I think being a massage therapist is more about the ability to wear 57 different hats in the course of any day and make them all look good. But hey, that's an episode for another day, because apparently some monsters are harder to tame than others.